My next patron question is from Andrew, who wants to know why specific Japanese animated series did not become more successful across the Pacific. Throughout the history of anime getting broadcast in the United States of America, some properties that were enormously successful in the home country of Japan would become equally huge in America, such as Pokemon, Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Sailor Moon. However, an interesting instance of this not being the case was with the early 2000s family-friendly anime Hamtaro. In Japan, the Hamtaro franchise generated the equivalent of up to $2.5 billion in merchandise sales. The anime had 12 seasons, totaling 296 episodes, and featured numerous OVAs and short films. On the other side of the pond, the beloved hamster had his fans, but ended up being an afterthought more or less. Only 104 episodes of the anime were ever dubbed into English, and after a 2-year struggle to make it the next big kids anime in America, Hamtaro just suddenly faded away. Many attribute the show's American failure to the fact that it was shown on Cartoon Network and originally was placed on the Toonami block, which mostly featured action-oriented anime and made the show feel out of place. And given that most Cartoon Network shows were not exactly as innocent as Hamtaro, the show struggled to find its audience there. In an alternate timeline, though, I think that Hamtaro could have been the Bluey of its day and been just as popular in America as it was in Japan, maybe if it had been shown on a different network. What do you think? Could Hamtaro have been a success in America under different conditions? The topic of a particular piece of media not becoming more popular in another country is something that does genuinely fascinate me, as there can be several reasons why audiences did not take to it or did not even become aware of its existence, whether because of the lack of an import or other reasons. For example, when I did an entire retrospective on Thunderbirds, I talked about how, despite becoming hugely popular in the UK, Japan, and other countries, the show has never been more than a cult curiosity in the United States. The creators, Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, even specifically made the Tracy family American, thinking that would make it more appealing to them. However, the show's producer, Lou Grade, failed to sell it to the networks, and it mostly became known to Americans who happened to catch a rerun on some cable channel decades later, or when the live-action movie came out. I looked at the promos Toonami made for Hamtaro, and even with a Peter Cullen voiceover, there was still a focus in it being a show about cute hamsters, and since the block was primarily filled with action shows, I can understand why this might not have attracted that audience. Even when it moved to a more reasonable time slot on Cartoon Network, I guess that was still not enough to attain a large audience. What could have helped Hamtaro become a bigger success in America? Maybe a different network might have worked, or another time slot, or it could just be one of those shows that, try as it might, it would have stayed a cult following in America. I think of something like Hergé's The Adventures of Tintin comics, which are very popular in several countries, including the native Belgium, but have never taken off in the United States for whatever reason. Even Steven Spielberg had never heard of Tintin until he came across a review from a French critic who compared Raiders of the Lost Ark to the comics, which was what then led him to getting the film rights and make his own adaptation. While that movie raised Tintin's profile a little in America, it still did not make him popular there like in other countries. So it can happen that even with the best marketing and biggest names at their disposal to make something more well known, something that's successful in one country remains either cult or obscure elsewhere. Although sometimes it can take a while, and a savvy company or producer might crack the code of Hamtaro one day. It's interesting that Andrew mentioned Sailor Moon as an example of a Japanese animated series that became big in America, because that did not happen immediately. Sailor Moon initially aired in the United States in syndication in terrible time slots that affected the potential audience. In comparison, the show also premiered on YTV in Canada at around the same time and did a lot better, as they seemed to better understand who might be interested in the show. It was not until Sailor Moon was picked up by Cartoon Network and aired on Toonami that it was eventually able to find a significant American fan base. So if someone at CN had not seen potential in Sailor Moon and found a way to attract viewership to the show on that channel, then it might have ended up having the same fate as Hamtaro. The popularity of Japanese animation has exploded a lot in the past number of years, thanks to streaming services like Crunchyroll making shows more accessible and Netflix investing heavily in anime productions. I've even noticed a lot of Japanese animated shows being licensed to stream on Disney+, including series like Dragon Ball and Bleach. All it takes is for some streaming service to sign a deal with the rights holders to show the episodes and put the series front and center on the homepage, and maybe it can catch on the way it was not able to on Cartoon Network. There was a period when the Studio Ghibli movies were mostly only known by those with some familiarity with Japanese animation, with maybe only My Neighbor Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service getting some attention from the general family crowd. However, thanks in some part to Disney and especially G-Kids and Netflix, Ghibli's library has become a lot more well known. Sometimes it just takes a little extra time, marketing know-how, and word of mouth. Thank you for your question, Andrew.